The Racing Postcast in association with Paddy Power. They pay more extra places than any other bookie.
Hello there, welcome along to the Racing Post Weekend Review Postcast. I'm Bruce Millington, and in the company of Nick Watts and Scott Burton, plus from Paddy Power, Paul Binfield, we will be looking back on ARC Weekend. Plus all that great action we saw on Saturday. We'll be looking to see what it all means for the classic pictures for next year. We'll touch upon British Champions Day, which is looming, Breeders' Cup, and we'll also look slightly nearer afield. I don't think people always say further afield, they never say nearer afield, but I'm going to Saturday when we've got the Dewhurst and the Cesarewitch at Newmarket. So, loads to get stuck into. First of all, Scott Burton, before we start talking about Found and Harzan and Postpone and everything else, what was the ARC weekend experience like at Shanti?
It was absolutely fantastic, Bruce. I can't say enough good things about it. In terms of the sort of sporting side of it, the track was in fantastic condition. No complaints about the ground, the draw, none of the usual things we're talking about at Longchamp. And just in terms of a day out, they capped the numbers so that it wasn't over full, but it was still a really, really good atmosphere. Lots and lots of British and Irish people had come over, and I'm pretty sure if you asked them, they'd all say they had a great time. I think Shanti did a really, really good job on it.
Not too many French accents to be heard, though, Scott.
Not so much on the grandstand side. I think they'd all taken the free train travel and the cheap tickets in the infield. So no, not too many. But,
so your message would be come to the 2017 ARC at Shanti, yeah? Don't wait for Longchamp to reopen.
No. Compare and contrast.
Righty-ho. Well, we'll start with the ARC. Obviously, Found, who's been a brilliantly consistent and tough racer for Aidan, led home two more Aidens. Absolutely ridiculous feat, Nick. I mean, you know, people are saying it's up there with Michael Dickinson's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in the Gold Cup. What do you think?
Yeah, possibly better, I would say. You know, there's some good horses in there, wasn't there? Postponed, Makahiki. So to get them to come 1, 2, 3 was amazing, and I think all the more so when you think that all three of his horses were beaten last time out. Order of George badly beaten, 7-1 on. Highland Real, he was thrashed in the Irish Champion last time. I think he finished 7th, and obviously Found ran a good race in that, finished 2nd behind Al Manzour, so that was more understandable. But to come back from that and get them to peak for this, and to get them to finish 1, 2, 3, particularly the 2nd and the 3rd, was extraordinary.
I think there's some people who think that because Aidan gets sent all these fantastic blue bloods, that it's easy. But, I mean, nothing could be further from the truth, could it? I mean, if he was no good, he would have got spat out years ago. I mean, the fact is he's stayed there for 20 years. I mean, we are talking here about the Muhammad Ali of training racehorses, aren't we?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, this is a feat that will probably never be repeated. You know, the 1, 2, 3 in the ARC is just unheard of. It's just beyond anything you can dream about. And, you know, as I said before, I mean, anyone who saw Order of St George last time being beaten 7-1 on, he had to be doubtful even to turn up, and then to finish 3rd is just amazing.
Paul Binfield, from Paddy Power's point of view, you'd think getting the favourite turned over would be a good result, but because you're a kind of more of an Irish-facing company, I would have thought that 1, 2, 3 wouldn't necessarily have been wildly good news for you guys, would it?
Well, actually, Bruce, normally Aidan O'Brien and Ryan Moore scoring in a Group 1 race had people, running for the door at Power Tower. But this time, it was actually a fantastic result. We managed to get the Japanese horse Makahiki into the book early. We laid plenty of Postpone. We kept the price going all day long. And in fact, found was a cracking result, surprisingly, for us.
Oh, fair enough. Jolly good. Scott, what was the French reaction to the race? I mean, what was the fact that it wasn't a particularly strong home challenge? Did it mean that interest in the race was slightly diminished from what it normally is, or did everyone in Paris Turf and all the other French publications laud the magnificent feat of Mr. O'Brien?
I think that's exactly it. I think they realised they'd seen something historic. It's obviously a race they hold very, very dearly, and they know how hard it is to win. I think Aidan put his finger on it himself yesterday. You know, for all the great horses he's trained and all the fantastic raw material he has to work with, that's only the 2nd ARC he's ever won. even more extraordinary to think that all the Galileos he's trained, and Galileo had never sired an Art winner before, really. No, I think the French reaction was very much that this was a historic moment. Quite a lot of my French press colleagues had done a tiercé on the three O'Brien horses, so they were all quite happy.
Did they? What did that pay?
I should think they're still counting it. I think they're taking it out in wheelbarrows rather than in the portfolio. You talk about Aidan's sort of achievements there. I had a very quick chat with Ronan O'Gara, the ex-Irish international rugby player. He was in the paddock when Found came in yesterday. And one of the things that you'd say marks out a really, really good coach in any sport is the ability to improve on a player or a horse in this case. And as Nick pointed out, they all got beaten last time. When O'Gara was playing, Munster got to a couple of European Cup finals before finally getting over the line, and the fact that he's been able to bring Found especially through this year, and obviously she was soundly beaten by Postponed at Epsom and has thoroughly turned the tables here, is just testament to what a really not just in racing terms but in broad sporting terms what he's achieved.
Perhaps he should have captained their Ryder Cup team. Oh, by the way, on the subject of the Ryder Cup, Scott, 2 years' time, the Ryder Cup's at Le Golf National in Paris. Is that sitting on Art Weekend, you know?
I'm told by the people who know it's the weekend before. So the last weekend in September. So
well,
you should come over and make a week of it.
Oh, yeah, blimey, that sounds brilliant. Definitely do that. 2018, Watsy. What a weekend, eh?
I'm there. I'm going already.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Oh, you're going already, eh? What, to the golf?
Well, no, if Big D lets me have the time off, then...
you'll be able to get it.
There,
either that or you'd have been sacked by then, don't worry. All right, let's talk about the elephant in the room then. Lowest winning RPR, joint lowest with Solimia a couple of years ago in the last 10 years. You know, I don't think anyone's kidding themselves. This was a vintage arc, Watsy. I'm not going to say how bad was it. I mean, how much should it detract from what Aidan and Found achieved?
I don't think it should detract at all. I mean, I think we get too hung up sometimes on whether it's a vintage renewal or not. You're not going to get a vintage renewal every year. You're not going to get Zarkavas and See the Stars turn up. It's just a way of things. And, you know, it shouldn't detract one iota from Aidan's achievement because it was still fantastic. And, yeah, I mean, Found she's been beaten a few times at Group 1 level, hasn't she? A lot of seconds next to her name. But she got it right on the day, and as they pointed out, she's always good in the autumn. She's won a Breeders' Cup. She won on the undercard of the Arc a couple of seasons ago, so this is her time of year. It probably wasn't the best renewal ever, but does it matter? It was still great sporting theatre.
Well said, Watsy. I like that. Silence those doubters. What about you, Mr. Binfield? Are you looking on the bright side here, or are you one of these hideous cynics who says, it was a rubbish race?
No, I couldn't disagree with you more, actually, Bruce. I think it was a vintage renewal. I think Found was winning her third Group 1 race, and she's won the Breeders' Cup Turf. Highland Reel back in second has won 3 Group 1s, including a King George. The third horse, Order of St George, 2 Group 1s. And you've got Harzand and Postponed beaten, the Japanese horse disappointed. I think it was a vintage renewal. Good,
I like that. Fighting talk. We're going to get off that subject then. Quick word about Harzand and Postponed, Scott.
Harzand, he was particularly disappointed, wasn't he? Because he was drawn really close to his pacemaker and got in behind Velivani, and then just by the middle of the turn, he was just backpedaling already, and he stayed on all right, but... Dermot Weld said afterwards that he felt the race had just come a bit quickly for him after the setback he had at Leopardstown, and maybe also that the 2 Derby wins have taken a bit out of him as well. So I suppose it has to be not much better than even money, but that might be the last we've seen of him.
What do we make of Postponed, Scott?
He just wasn't really sort of travelling with his normal zest coming into the straight. I mean, they said he got on the wrong leg and all the rest, which interestingly, Richard Hughes mentioned in his column on Saturday how important it is to be on the right lead going around that long bend at Chantilly, and unfortunately Andrea wasn't able to manage that on him. If he comes back and they found nothing physically wrong with him, he's had quite a light year. They might be tempted, you never know, to be Breeders' Cup or Hong Kong or something like that. So there's a better chance of seeing him again, assuming that they get him back and run the rule over him and he's in A1 shape.
Paul, have we got any prices for Postponed Breeders' Cup wise?
Not sure about that one, Bruce.
Who have you got?
Certainly we might come on to Limata, and that fella is 6-4 favourite for the Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint.
What about, we'll stick with the Arc at the moment, what have you got for Found?
found is, let me just...
Come on, you promised me fast fingers. You said they
dance
so around that keyboard here. Like Liberace. I mean, in fact, while you're getting the prices there, Paul, what's he postponed? What's the view on him? Because I kind of had this feeling all along that if you think back to last year's King George, was it where, him and Eagle Top were kind of neck and neck, weren't they? It was almost as if because there's a paucity of top-class older horses, Postpone found himself in this position of being this exalted horse. And perhaps we saw yesterday simply that, he's just not as good as everyone's making out. I don't know, what do you think?
It's quite possible. I don't see that there's any obvious excuse for him yesterday. He seemed to be in the right position. I'd take Scott's point if he wasn't quite on the right leg or whatever going around the home turn. But he's close enough. He just didn't find in the final quarter of the race. And you go back to his York win, and he actually beat Highland Reel there by, what was it, a length or something like that. And that form, if he'd done that again, he would have been bang there. So he's run below par, but no excuses. And yeah, we could have been lulled a little bit, as you correctly say, Eagle Top. I think he's gone off to be a jump stallion now. So, that wasn't a great race in hindsight, was it? But he's got a few questions to answer now, definitely.
Okay, Paul, what have you got then?
We've got even money favourite for the Breeders' Cup Turf, Bruce.
That's found,
7-2 second favourite, Flintshire for that event.
Okay, any views there, Nick?
I think Found will probably win. It could easily be a 1-2 again. I imagine Highland Reel would go over there as well because he likes quick ground and, Found won it last season. It could be another 1-2 for Aidan.
I'll tell you what, Scotty, last word on the Highland Reel probably doesn't quite get the credit he deserves. There's a good old globetrotter him, isn't he? He's picked up more than his fair share of money, hasn't he, down the years?
He has. I was extremely lucky to be in Hong Kong last year and see him win the Cup, the Vase there. He's a top knocking, and you can send him out once a month, once every 3 weeks, and he gives his running a mile and a quarter, mile and a half, very, very versatile. And it makes you wonder, actually, also when we might next see his full brother Idaho, who obviously was so unfortunate at St Leger, and could be one of those horses that develops in a similar vein if he's kept in training at 4 and 5.
Yeah, it could be their older horse, couldn't he? Elsewhere on the Curragh card, it was not the Curragh card, the Shanti card. It was a bit of a bloodbath with old favourite backers, wasn't it? A few big names got turned over, not just Postponed. Somi Dar didn't get going in time. Mecca's not quite sure about Mecca's there. To be honest, I couldn't make head nor tail of the Abbey. They seemed to change camera angle every 3 seconds. I just didn't have a clue what I was looking at in the end. I felt quite dizzy by the end of it. And then Limato came to everyone's rescue at the end. So Paul Binfield, probably quite a good meeting overall for the layers, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think Limato was the one result that did hit us a bit. I've already said the Arc was a good result. Marsha, my former colleague Brendan Duke, who you know so well, I think he was quite keen on that one. But a bit of a surprise result from Sir Mark Prescott, and as you say, Somi Dar got turned over. I think she was very unlucky, and I think she's got a chance at Ascot in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, she did look unlucky, Nick, didn't she? I mean, she just by the time he came off the rail to deliver the challenge, the other two had gone. It didn't look like that place you can make up ground off the pace, can you?
No, I don't think it was. No, we saw in the big race itself that, and a lot of the day, I think the winners came from the front. National Defence was very impressive. I'm not sure he beat anything particularly amazing. Salowin was the second horse there as well beaten, but it did suit front runners and National Defence. If there was one to take through for next season, that would be the one for me. I thought very, very impressive.
Yeah, it did look impressive, didn't it? It was nice to see Cricket Head Marek get a winner, Scott, wasn't it? In terms of that, what we saw yesterday, is that typical Shanti racing that you need to be bang there turning in, or was it just it's a small sample and horses are perfectly capable of coming off the pace as they are anywhere else?
You can win from anywhere there ordinarily. It was pretty quick ground yesterday. They put 10.5 millimetres on of water during the course of the week, but for instance in the Arc, they ran half a second under the course record, which goes back to the 86 Jockey Club and Bearing, who ended up being second to Dancing Brave in the Arc. So that's a long-standing sort of Group 1 course record there. So it was quick yesterday, and obviously that means that horses that get a lead, they keep going further, because it is a stamina-sapping course, but it obviously helps you preserve your stamina if you go early, and the quick ground, you can sort of keep galloping on it. So, no, I don't think that's necessarily, most of the French jockeys would be quite patient there and wait to ride a finish in the last 2 furlongs. It's just the way it played out. But I would agree with Nick. I thought National Defence was very good. It was probably only a Group 3 field, but when you beat a Group 3 field by 4.5 lengths, you probably are a Group 1 horse. And I was quite interested to see, and I'm not trying to trip Paul up here, but I don't think any of the bookmakers have priced up National Defence for next season's 2,000 guineas. But when Cricket was asked in a press conference afterwards, what sort of future she saw for him, she sees him as a miler. He might stay a little bit further in time. And she said, well, he'll be entered in the guineas and probably the Poule d'Essai as well, and she said it in that order. So I don't necessarily think, given that the Poule d'Essai next year, the French Guineas, is on the straight mile again at Deauville, she'll just go where she thinks the ground's best for him, and he obviously likes quick ground. So I don't think it's by any means impossible he could turn up at Newmarket, and I'd be interested if some prices did emerge at some stage in the next few days.
OK, Paul, take us through, if people were impressed by National Defence or indeed the Marcel Boussac winner Wahida, what prices they might be able to get for next year's classics.
Well, I've restored my reputation, Bruce, after my earlier fumblings. I've asked the traders for a price on National Defence this morning for the 2,000 guineas, and they came up with 25 to 1. I guess that's taking into account the fact that he could well run in the French Guineas, but it is Cricket Head Marique, so she's got a good record in England. And Wahida, initially after the race, we went 12 to 1 joint favourite for the 1,000 guineas. But Charlie Appleby was saying he thought she was more of an Oaks filly, so she's 16 to 1 for the Oaks if people fancy that one.
When Paul mentioned the 25 to 1 National Defence for the Guineas, I looked at you to see how high your eyebrows raised, and they did raise your eyebrows.
Yeah, no, I think 25 to 1 is very reasonable considering the way he won. And, Cricket Head Marique, she's one of those French trainers that's certainly not scared of bringing one over. She likes the Newmarket Classics, won them before, so you wouldn't be surprised if, we had a dry spring leading into next season. National Defence made his way over. If he does, there's no way he starts at 25 to 1.
When are you next writing Anti-Post Focus in the Racing Post? You're due to
Wednesday.
have a pop, are you?
Wednesday, yeah.
What are you going to do, Cheltenham, or are you going to have a crack at the Guineas?
I don't know. I was looking at the Hennessy last week, so maybe I've switched over already. I might have to switch back into flat mode for a week.
OK, we'll stick in flat mode and look back on Saturday's action next.
Here's Paddy Power's latest horse racing offer. It's money back as a free bet if your horse finishes second to the SP Fav at one meeting every day this month. Paddy Power, you're welcome. Max free bet £25, 18 plus. Please gamble responsibly.
OK, if Shanti was the main focus of the weekend, there was also some very interesting snippets going on at Ascot, Newmarket and elsewhere. And I suppose Sharla is the best place to start, Nick. Made his comeback at Ascot and really did tough it out. Do you think we could see the British Champions sprint winner there?
Yeah, I don't know. I love the horse. I love the way he did it at the weekend because the ground would have been against him. Obviously, coming off the back of a long absence, and they're trying to win the race, but trying to give him an as easy a race as possible at the same time, so as not to bottom him out for 2 weeks. It's the age-old problem, isn't it? It depends how much you believe in the bounce factor. He's been off for a very, very long time. Come back, and it was just a 2-week break between Saturday's race and Champions Day. If the ground was similarly soft, I might be persuaded against him. If it's a typical kind of Champions Day, wet, windy, soft, it wouldn't play to his strengths because he's a real speedball, this horse. He did it well on Saturday despite the ground, and he probably had a bit of a class edge. But
it's a shame we're not seeing much more of him. That's going to be his last race, I think, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it might well be. But, I suppose there's...
I'm looking at the forecast. It's dry as a bone.
If it did come up good, if it was unseasonably good at Ascot, then yeah, I would fancy him quite a lot. But I'd take a weather watch definitely on the week of the race before.
OK,
committing.
Paul, have we got any prices yet for that?
Yeah, we make him 5 to 1 second favourite now, Bruce. He was 6 to 1 initially after the race on Saturday. As Nick said, very impressive. Frankie didn't go after him at all. But I agree with Nick. I think you want to be waiting until the end of that week to be backing him, just in case it did come up heavy.
Who are his market rivals?
We've got Quiet Reflection in there for Carl Burker's 7 to 2 favourite, and then On 6-1 Twilight Sun for Henry Candy. Then we go 7 the Tin Man and Mecca's Angel, who disappointed, as you mentioned yesterday. And then 10-1 La Breeze, who was also an impressive winner at Ascot on Saturday.
Well, yeah, we should talk about La Breeze. I mean, Scott, you were busy grafting as you were all week, and your magnificent efforts were much appreciated by everyone in the office. Scott, you had a great week. But did you get time to see this La Breeze? Because if you didn't, you must go and watch it. I mean, as you may know, I'm not mad on sectionals, but I mean, I'd love to know what he did the last 50 yards in there. It was absolutely unbelievable. Did you see it, Scott?
I haven't seen it.
You must, mate. Honestly, it was absolutely ridiculous.
I can't say I'm surprised. Obviously, Dean Ivory is a trainer who we know has got a bit of a trick with sprinters, and you know, all the reports from a lot of the other British journalists who down tools for 5 minutes every half an hour to watch what's going on across the water. They were all very impressed with him. I thought Shalar, actually, I have seen Shalar's race, and I think this is a carefully worked out plan. They could have very, very easily said he'd met with another slight setback, sent this boy off to the Ara de Boucateau off in Normandy. I've seen some of the staff. They've already got the sleeveless puffer jackets printed up. I thought he'd been retired when I saw him at the sales the other month. So this is a bit of a risk to come back and say, look, he's trained on and he's as good at 3 as he was at 2. And I suspect Mr. Gosden left plenty to work on him. And if we get a relatively dry spell, I think he's a real player. Because Quiet Reflection, I'm a big fan of as well, but she obviously would prefer it the other way. And I think they'll have left a bit to work on, knowing that the race would bring him on. And I think he's a serious player in the champion sprint.
Nick Watts, can La Breeze step up? Do you think? It was an astonishing performance, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. It's unbelievable. I backed Squats in that race, and I
backed the second, and it was one of those ones where at the time you're like, bastard, but then you have to just sit back and admire it, don't you?
I know, watching the race, you kind of got one eye on La Breeze because you know that he's kind of the danger, and then you know, furlong out, 2 furlongs out, you just think, well, you can discount him, he can't win from there, can't do it, so you're concentrating on your ones. Then you see the grey flashing through, kind of doing it almost on the bridle.
It was extraordinary.
You did just have to take your hat off to him. Interesting that the time before that, he had been beaten by Nemeralia, I think it was York. I think that was a Group 3, but I don't think we saw the best of him that day. If it did come up soft or similar-ish conditions to the weekend, I wouldn't rule him out of the champion sprint. Dean Ivory almost won it a few years ago with Tropics, didn't they? And
yeah, he did.
This might well be a better horse than that.
He's a real tool. I love him. Alice Springs, despite the doubts of many on our Friday postcast panel, including Mr. Duke, did the business in the Sun Chariot at Newmarket on Saturday. Not necessarily wildly impressive. Paul, what's that done for her prices in terms of Breeders' Cup and whatever else?
Well, as you say, Bruce, not wildly impressive, but she did it well enough, and she's had a brilliant season for Aidan, possibly overshadowed a bit by Minding, but she's done really well. It didn't affect her price for the Breeders' Cup Mile. We left her unchanged at 4-1, probably because she's got to take Tep-in on it in her own backyard, which is going to be an exceptionally difficult task.
What price is Tep-in?
Tep-in 5 to 6 favourite, Bruce, so we think she's home and hosed.
Yeah, she looks it. Okay, chaps, one horse for your... For listeners to put in their horse tracker. Nick, we'll start with you.
I just think Squats ran into one on Saturday. I think there's a 7 furlong handicap on the Ascot card on Champions Day. Georgia Cox will probably get to ride again, so I wouldn't discount Squats at all.
Okay, Scotty?
I actually thought that we did touch on the Marcel Boussac, and I thought he did it very, very well, and does look an Oaks filly. She's out of a winner of the Ribblesdale, so she's obviously bred to stay a mile and a half. But I thought Senga, who finished 4th in that race, having not really got involved in all the heat up front, coming from a long way off the pace, proved to be pretty much the best of the French.
That was the one that was flying down the outside, wasn't it?
Absolutely,
yeah.
And I think she's probably one you'd want to keep an eye on. In which case, if you want 2 for the price of 1, the filly that beat her on debut, La Cochère of Jean-Claude Rouget, should probably go in as well.
You need to spell that one.
That's La and then Cochére.
My theory on French words is that there's about 5 different possible ways of spelling every single one. Like if you go on holiday there and you say like, you know, where am I going to next? And I say El, and you're like, well, you know, that could literally have 20 different ways of spelling it. But anyway, okay, thank you for that one, Scott. Paul, which is your contribution to people's tracker?
I've already mentioned it, Bruce. Somidar didn't quite hit the right note on Sunday, but I think 12-1 for the British Champions Fillies and Mare Stakes at Ascot, if she shows up, is a very fair price.
Oh, can you give us a slightly more full show on that race, Paul, so we can just see who she could be up against? So 12-1 sounds big.
I can indeed, if you'll bear with me, Bruce.
No problem. Only obviously a 13-day gap, but that's okay, isn't it? Not a
13-day gap, yeah, but...
she's fresh as a daisy, isn't she?
Yeah, John Gosden won't have to do too much with her. He'll just keep her ticking over. And as I say, she was really unlucky. She got knocked back on that bend, as you said, got shut in, and...
didn't need too much more in the way of distance to get there, did she?
No, she didn't, and I think she's a really good filly. I think she should have won yesterday, but for that. And
you're doing a fantastic job keeping on talking while you try and get the prices. We'll have a quick break, then we'll get the prices, and then we'll look ahead to Newmarket on Saturday.
Here's Paddy Power's latest horse racing offer. It's money back as a free bet if your horse finishes second to the SP Fav at one meeting every day this month. Paddy Power, you're welcome. Max free bet £25, 18 plus. Please gamble responsibly.
How are you getting on, Paul?
Yeah, not too bad, actually, Bruce. Got there now.
Coming in, mate.
12-1, as we say, Somidar. But it looks a strong renewal. Zukova, 2-1 favourite. Seventh Heaven, 9-2. Journey, 6-1. Simple Verse, 10-1. And a few others on 12-1.
I still think 12s is all right. What do you reckon, Watsy? Who do you like in that race?
Probably Seventh Heaven after Founders come and won.
Yeah, fair enough. I see where you're coming from. OK, let's look ahead to Saturday briefly. We will be looking at this in greater depth in Friday's Postcast, but there's some really terrific action coming up on the Rowley Mile, and not least, obviously, the Dewhurst, which is the big 2-year-old race of the whole year, and presumably Churchill is very short, Paul. Yeah,
Churchill is really short, Bruce. 4-7 favourite, and you can't really argue with that, having defeated Maymas by 4.5 lengths. We've got Blue Point in there at 5-1, but
what's the Balding thing? What price is that?
Churchill looks very, very hard to oppose.
What price is Andrew Balding's thing? What's it called? South Seas or whatever it is.
That's 4-1, Bruce.
4-1. Do you know, I'm going to back that. I'm going to back that each way. I think I really have been impressed with him. He absolutely dotted up wins the first time out. I've just got a feeling about him. What do you reckon, Watts? You got a view on the Dewhurst?
Yeah, I'd agree with you. I'd maybe try and take on Churchill. I think there's a couple of good 2-year-olds in the race. I think South Seas is definitely one of them. And William Haggis's Rivet, I think, is going for the race. He won the Champagne last time. I was really impressed with the way he did it. So I don't think this is going to be easy for Churchill. If you take the view that he beat a horse Memas, who was a non-stayer last time out, then he just did what he was expected to do. And 4-7's a bit short for me. I'd prefer them a bit bigger than that. So I'd go with Rivet.
I'm going to take on Churchill. What are you going to do, Paul? Do you think this fav's a good thing?
I wouldn't say a good thing, Bruce. I certainly wouldn't be backing him at 4-7. But if you look at the 4.5 beating of Maymas, Blue Point beat that one 2.25 lengths last time, having improved against the same horse at Goodwood. But I do think Churchill will be very, very difficult to beat.
And Scott, what's your Dewhurst thoughts?
I'm going to sound a bit contrary here. I wasn't actually that thrilled with his winning the National Stakes. I think he obviously outstayed Maymas, but he took quite a long time to get going.
You're not being at all contrary here. You're agreeing with me and Watsy.
You could see him sort of, coming down into the dip and then going again. He, as I say, he's not got what I would call instant acceleration, really. And one of the sort of speedier bred ones, maybe a Blue Point or something like that, if he were to be kept in the race, might give him something to think about. So I certainly wouldn't be taking a short price about him. I think it's also quite interesting that at this sort of 5-day stage, and I've no idea whether he'll turn up, but Capri, who won at Curragh the other day, is still in there, and you've always got to have it in your mind that things can change quite quickly with Aidan O'Brien, and actually, which horses end up running. So,
I sense Capri might be one for our race at Donny.
Yes, that would be the obvious place to go, but
you never know, do you?
You never do. You never do.
Okay, a slightly more tricky test on Saturday's the Cesarewitch. And Watsy, you're still on for the autumn double, aren't you?
Yeah, me and
Having
Tom.
nailed the you and Tom nailed Sparkplug in the Cambridge, didn't you? So who are you trusting in the next one?
Well, it sounds boring, and it'll be interesting to see the declaration stage today to see how many have come out, because Saint Michel did need quite a few to come out to get a run. If he can sneak into the bottom, then I think he's got an obvious chance. He's very well in after that third in the Doncaster Cup last time out. And yeah, he's just a very, very well treated horse. So he would be my number one. But I've got a cliff horse in it as well called Renetti, Woody Mullins' horse, who was fourth in the race last season. I was convinced he was going to win a good handicap over hurdles and never quite did it. Flattered quite a lot. I'm going to go in one more time on him if he's in the race still. I think he's about 16, 20 to 1. They would be my two, but Saint Michel, I think, will take a lot of beating.
You've learnt your lesson from Cotai Glory, haven't you, with your cliff horses? You deserted him when he won, didn't you? So
I know.
You've got to stick with him now, haven't you?
Absolutely.
Binners, can I call you Binners? Who do you fancy for
indeed,
Zarowich?
Yeah, St Michel is 6-1 favourite at the moment. Let's hope he gets in for Nick Watts. I quite like Blue Rambler for Ian Williams at 20-1. Don't know whether he'll get the 2 mile 2, but you could say that for a lot of them. And that one made a pleasing reappearance on his first flat start for a long time when third at Haydock last month.
Okay, and Scott, come to you for one. Before you go off and have a lie down, I presume you're having a post-arc blowout now, aren't you? A few days off?
Yeah, well, I have got today off the rotor, it's true, but
Very
I
kind.
should be back nose to the grindstone pretty shortly, I should think. I've just had a quick time while you were chatting about that to have a look. The confirmations have dropped. I think I'm right in saying that Saint Michel is number 44 in the list at the moment, so he still needs a few to come out. I'm sort of, it's not...
What do they run now? 35 in that?
34.
34.
Yeah.
34. He's got a chance, but there's not a lot that can happen to a 2 mile 2 stayer in the last week. And you need 10 of them to stand on a stone, really. If they've been left in at this stage,
They don't do that anymore, do they?
Plan.
They hardly ever stand on stones anymore. I don't know whether trainers have cleared all the gravel off their gallops, but you used to get much more of that. He's trodden on a stone. Doesn't seem to happen that often.
It doesn't. I'm slightly interested. I side slightly with the Norwegian trainer and the winner at Ascot the weekend, who said in the jury today that she's brave enough to send a horse all the way from Norway to Ascot, but she's not stupid enough to venture an opinion in the Cesarewitch. But I'm slightly interested by Mark Prescott's other potential Sea of Heaven. I did speak to him a little bit when we did the price-wise, and he pointed out he's got a lamentable record in this race. But Sea of Heaven won quite a nice race at Ascot during the summer, and has had a couple of all right runs since then, and would look, very, very stoutly bred. One of these Lady Bamford family geldings, so he has to see the stars and Darshan Mare and all the rest of it, so he should stay at least. And he might be slightly overlooked because everyone's looking at the sexy one down the bottom, Saint Michel. So if I had to have a tentative poke, that would be it at the moment.
Okay, Scott, many thanks. Nick Watts, thank you. And Paul Binfield, many thanks for that as well. Join us again on Friday for the weekend postcast. On Thursday, we've got the football postcast. We will be back later this week.
The Race and Postcast in association with Paddy Power. They price up all UK and Irish racing the night before.